Institute, and I want to welcome you to Five Things in 15 Minutes with my special guest, Irma Brienne Stanley. Irma, would you please introduce yourself?
Well, hello, my name is Erma Brienne, and my pronouns are they, them, theirs. So glad to be here.
Thank you. And Irma is one of our awesome facilitators with Equality Institute. So some of you may have worked with them before or are going to be working with them in the future. So hello, and thank you all for being here. So, Five Things in 15 Minutes is my weekly LinkedIn live show, and it's on YouTube as well. My weekly live show in which I'm joined by a guest, and we talk about good things, positive vibes that are happening in diversity, equity, and inclusion, and sometimes corporate social responsibility. These stories are all stories that give me hope, they give me inspiration, and my goal is that when you read the story in the newsletter on Saturday or you hear about it on LinkedIn on Monday, that you just feel like you have an idea that you can bring back to your own organization, or that you have some inspiration of what's going right in the world, because there are a lot of stories about what's going wrong, but I like to share what's going right, and hopefully these are ideas that you can bring back to your own org. So if you don't already get Five Things newsletter, you can subscribe at the equalityinstitute.com/join, and it goes out every Saturday morning. Okay, so Five Things in 15 Minutes today. Our first topic is the word of the year from dictionary.com, which is allyship. Allyship is the word of the year, which the word has been around since the mid 1800s, but it actually wasn't even added to dictionary.com until a few weeks ago, or until a few months ago, when there were spikes in searches for terms like ally and alliance. So allyship, Irma, can I ask who has been an ally to you?
So many people in my life for sure, but when I think of this, I always kind of just think of my close friends who always have my back, and even my employers that I've had in recent years have really changed what it's like to be at work, and so they've really been allies. Speaking up for who I am as a person, as a trans non-binary person. So the tribe of people, I have so many.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And how have you been inspired by those acts of allyship towards you? How do you feel like you personally can pay that forward?
I try to how it inspires me is just like there's so much love and care in the world, and
Yeah.
so how I pay it forward is just like be that all the time for everyone that I meet, and really come from a place of grace and just showing love to people. So yeah, that's how I pay it forward.
Well, as someone who has met you in person, you do like that is your energy. It's great. It's great energy to be around in person, and also it works virtually too. So Irma brings that into their presentations with our clients, which is awesome. Thank you. I think it's important to talk about this stuff because, the reality is that even though we come from underrepresented groups, we have historically marginalized identities, we still have privilege.
Right.
And because we have that privilege, there is this sense of responsibility. So it's not just about like taking allyship, it's also about paying it forward and giving
Yeah.
it back, because I really do think that every last one of us has a role to play.
For sure. It really is about like looking into seeing ourselves and where we do hold that privilege, which I speak about mine all the time, which sometimes people are like, oh, they look at all these like marginalized communities that I intersect with, but I did grow up in a middle class family with two parents. So that, adds, that privilege there in my life. So always looking at through all of those lenses.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, one thing that definitely gives me hope about allyship being named Word of the Year is that it means that all of these people are searching for these terms. It
Yeah.
means that people are looking for ways to be allies and looking for what does it mean, and that's the type of thing that gives me hope. And hopefully, I believe that we're just getting started, and there's an awful lot of momentum building as we keep doing this work in the years to come. So
Yeah.
very, very cool stuff. Okay, so next on the list of good vibes in DEI is that Major League Soccer updated its hiring policies to set even higher diversity standards for not only itself as an organization, as a league, but also for all of the professional clubs. So it's now requiring that for open technical positions, the finalist pool has to have 2 or more BIPOC candidates with comparable experience, one of whom must be Black. So this is for all clubs, all Major League Soccer clubs, for the organization itself. And there's also, accountability built in. So it takes these types of changes to actually make progress. So I love it. I love this.
Oh yeah, definitely. Especially when it comes to tech, we don't often realize how impactful that is in our lives. And so when those things, those biases are in there, it really affects everyone's experience. And so this is a really great step. And having that accountability built in there too means that they're really serious about it, and taking this action.
Yeah, absolutely. It's sort of a spin-off of the Rooney Rule, which was used for a while now by the National Football League, by the NFL, in terms of hiring coaches, requiring diverse candidates. But the thing that makes this step a little bit different is that the candidates have to have comparable experience. There can't just be like, some random Black person in there. Like they actually there has to be an effort put into sourcing these candidates, which I think, again, it just goes to show that we're not looking to make this easy. We're looking to make this sustainable and do it right.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. So next story is about the Body Shop. So the Body Shop for a few years now has had what's called an open hiring program. And this is something that they learned from Grayston Bakery. So the open hiring program says that any candidate who applies for the job, or the first candidate who applies for a job in retail or at their warehouse, gets it, as long as they're legal to work, can lift 50 pounds, and can stand on their feet for 8 hours. So they're not doing any background checks. They're not doing extensive interviews. And it works. I mean, this is a way to create more equitable hiring opportunities. It's a way to invest in your team. Turnover is really low, and they're well staffed during the Great Resignation.
That's amazing. When I saw the no background checks, like that in this society is, a real big step forward. And I don't think people often realize that, but that can be a barrier for a lot of people getting employed. And so that is just absolutely amazing to see.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially because, there are way too many, a huge disproportionate amount of Black and brown folks thrown in jail during the war on drugs for crack when white folks doing cocaine were not. And even though the drugs are from the same plant, I mean, the war on drugs is an example of structural racism, which led to a whole lot of families being torn apart, a whole lot of increase the racial wealth gap, and certainly just led to a lot of folks not being able to vote, not being able to get jobs because of these background checks, because of felony convictions. So it's a whole spiral. This is the consequence, and this is a great solution that Body Shop has.
Yeah, it really is, especially because there's, with all of that, because there's so much that goes into that as well, because there are people who are in jail and prison who are there because they can't afford to get out. And so just being able to apply without that, as a fear too, releases that anxiety and makes you feel comfortable being able to apply, just to apply. And so again, that was a wonderful read as well.
Yeah. For those folks who are watching, I would love for you to comment on which of these 5 things is most interesting to you, which you think you might take and adapt for your own organization. I love talking about this stuff, but I especially love hearing what you're doing and what you are inspired by. Okay, and the last 3 and 4 or 5 of the list are about a couple of different companies in Boston who are taking some very cool initiatives to increase diversity, not only at the entry level jobs, but also at higher level, because there's an awful lot of bias that is built into the process of hiring and promotions. So this one company, Akamai, removed unnecessary qualifications such as long lists of programming language, I think some degree requirements as well, from job postings. Because those degree requirements often keep people who don't meet all of those requirements, all of those qualifications that are unnecessary, from applying. They're a deterrent, and that deterrent is essentially a form of unconscious racial bias or bias that keeps people away. So they took those qualifications out. And then the second one is that Wayfair developed a tool to scan performance reviews for racially biased language. Now, biased language that can show up in performance reviews, or the bias that does show up, often is a barrier from BIPOC folks and women from getting promoted. So these are really, really, really cool initiatives that I read about this week as well.
Yeah, that, again, to just like these steps that these companies are taking to really move diversity forward, and it doesn't take much to do, right? So just like removing that language from the application process brings a bigger pool in, and so that's a really great step for people to take, and it goes a long way. And even with Wayfair having this technology to scan performance reviews for racial biases, like, again, to people that aren't living at these intersections, don't often realize that these things are happening. So being able to do that, allows your employees to stay there longer, and holding that retention. So that's amazing.
Yeah, it makes these things make a huge difference. I mean, so oftentimes the excuse for lack of diversity is the pipeline, or these folks, they're not getting promoted. Well, if there are these excuses that exist, but there are actually some really simple solutions. By
Right.
actually removing expectations and criteria from applications, or from job postings, I should say,
Mhm.
it just simplifies things and it opens the door much more wide open. But a lot of organizations are afraid to do this. Like, it's lowering the bar, but it's not really. A lot of times these qualifications were unnecessary to begin with. Well, these stories inspire me, Irma, and thank you for sharing them with me today. I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you for inviting me on. It's always great to be here and to speak about some good news.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. Well, for those of you just joining us, you've caught 5 things in 15 minutes, good vibes and DEI. Get the newsletter at theequalityinstitute.com/join. We share good news every Monday here on LinkedIn and in the newsletter on Saturday mornings. Thank you so much for joining us. Please let me know in the comments what actions you're planning to take, or what inspired you from today's show. Thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of your day. Have a great week.
Bye.
Bye.